Hello comic book fans, here's Earl Grey. Today I want to talk about more Alien books and quite briefly about a collected edition or Predator comics as well. The comic I show you right here is a flea market find. It's the comic adaptation of the first Alien movie drawn by Walter Simonson and written by Archie Goodwin. A decent retelling even though it lacks the sinister atmosphere of the movie. What sets Aliens apart from other science fiction franchises like Star Wars and Star Trek is primarily the predominant element of horror, and secondarily that it is basically a very one-note or maybe two notes thing. Its scope is limited in any case. Alien is about that primordial creature once designed by H.R. Geiger. Then there's the tough lady called Ripley who knows stuff, most of all how dangerous that creature is. And there are these dogs, schnooks and fools who want to make money out of that alien against all morale and against all evidence that this is hardly ever possible. And that's basically it. No Star Trekian boldly go where no man has gone before with new creatures and new threats in zillion galaxies. No Star Wars world where you can potentially make a mega seller movie out of nearly each side character spin-off. Although the Alien movies create a pretty well thought out future world as well, and I know of course of Prometheus and that there are a lot of crossovers, but the focus in Aliens, generally speaking, is much less on world building and much more on creating an atmosphere of angst and the feeling how it is to be out there and highly endangered in a most unfriendly universe. These were likewise the reasons why Alien 1 and, to a lesser degree, Alien 2 had a big a great impact for me. On the other hand, it's the reason why I actually think that Alien as a franchise has to have its limitations as well. There's simply no reason to have a shelf full of Aliens comics. And there I go, buying and reading one Alien comic after the other. I've shown you already these 30th anniversary editions from Dark Horse and Panellogy 163. Beautiful books in their own right, with pretty decent and interesting interpretations of the alien mythos, even though they are not outstanding and mind-blowing by any means. But if you like your mind to be blown, there's this wonderful hardcover from the German publisher CrossCult in cooperation with Dark Horse. It's a collection of stories that were originally published by Dark Horse in separate trades, if I'm not mistaken. So close your eyes for a second and imagine all the artists that you would like to assign to draw an Aliens comic. They are all in this collection. Mike Mignola, check. Richard Corben, check. Kelley Jones, check, etc., etc. The first comic that I'm showing you right now is from David Lloyd, a short piece about morale and redemption in the face of the inevitable. Quite powerful, but by far not the best story in the book. The next story, Survival, is drawn by that guy that does Mignola's BPRD so well. Guy Davis. Like most, or maybe all the other stories in this book, it was formerly published in color. I looked it up online and it looks in color pretty neat as well, but the black and white of Guy Davis underlines the abstract qualities of the story in which reality, dreams and nightmares alternate with and blend into each other. Then we have Earth Angels, a decent, very pulpy and short story drawn and written by John Byrne. The center of it is the pretty gory depiction of the confrontation of the aliens and the biker gang. But one of the highlights of the book is the following story, Salvation, drawn by Mike Mignola. I own this comic in a smaller and colored format already and was actually rather underwhelmed by the story. But rereading it in this black and white format was quite a different experience. The story really has a lot of atmosphere, and Mignola's depiction of the xenomorph is one of the most elegant ones, if you can use the word elegant for it. But no wonder that the publisher chose one of Mignola's panels as a template for the cover. Then we have two stories by another artist whose art works very well in black and white, Eduardo Risso. The second story in this collection from Eduardo Risso is an adaptation of the fourth movie. I still have to watch that one, and I will do this soon, but for now I don't want to be spoiled. Therefore, I haven't read that one yet. I've only watched the first 3 movies so far. One of my favorites in this gorgeous collection is the next one by Richard Corben, reminding me of what a fantastic artist he is. Again, this one was also available in color previously, but the black and white version of this tale, written by John Arcudi, is very powerful. For Corben, it's a typical setting on a distant planet around the relics of a demolished transport spaceship. A religious cult has emerged, and a fight between the believers and the, so to speak, atheist skeptics ensues that maybe nobody can win. For sure, not the most original story, but a fat lot I care. That comic is a gem. In contrast, to be honest, to the goofy fun that's drawn by Ronnie Del Carmen afterwards. A whacked out uber-macho pest control guy shoots and kills his way through the alien bugs like there's no tomorrow, hence putting the danger of the xenomorphs into perspective, sort of, and actually against the general premise. Unfortunately, that's the main and almost only idea behind these two stories, but at least they give us the most hilariously phallic depiction of a weapon I've ever seen. So that's something, I guess. Least but not last, there's a 4-part miniseries from Kelley Jones. Jerry Prosser has written an interesting and pretty original story. The premise is that the royal jelly of the xenomorph queen can be used as a potent drug. A terminally ill scientist and his girlfriend try to steal the royal jelly with the aid of an android xenomorph called Norbert. At least in the German version it's Norbert. Maybe in the American it's Herbert, don't know. That sounds goofy, and a goofy idea it is, but with Kelley Jones' dramatic and expressive art, it works very well as an existential tale of ruthless egoism, desperation, love, and nihilism. My appreciation for Kelley Jones is constantly growing anyway. Some of his panels here and pages are totally top-notch, even though some others seem a bit too clunky, maybe a bit rushed due to time issues, I don't know, but overall a very interesting interpretation and take on aliens. And speaking of it, James Stokoe is currently working on an Aliens miniseries as well. Needless to say that I'll got to have that one when it's collected as a trade. So now 1 or 2 words about the 30th anniversary Predator collection from Dark Horse. Like the other 2 anniversary collections, this is a very sexy and shiny book. Unfortunately, the content don't hold up to the intriguing look, at least not totally. The first story, Concrete Jungle, was my favorite story of the 3 in the book. Penciled, at least for the most part, by Chris Warner. It's a good old-fashioned action comic. The general premise is first and foremost and genuinely simple, just a change of the setting from the jungle to New York. where the brother of Schaefer has to fight the Predator as a New York cop. That works pretty well, especially when you know and like that Schwarzenegger trash movie from way back when. Unfortunately, the artist Ron Randall, who drew the other two stories in the book, is not as good as Chris Warner. Still okay, but what made these stories a bit superfluous, not to say boring, is the inevitably repetitiveness of the narrative. And it lacks some logic when in the second story, Cold War, the predators appear in Siberia, despite the fact that before it was always a given fact that they are attracted to heat and more tropical climates. But maybe the writer, Mark Verheiden, thought it was a too good opportunity to be passed to work a bit of the last days of the Cold War or the late 80s into his story. The colors of the first two stories were done for the most part by Chris Challenor, and I dug them a lot. Some of the panels look almost like Elizabeth Breitweiser could have done them. Maybe she got some inspiration from Chris Challenor's coloring. Unfortunately, the last story bears a much more generic, in quotes, modern coloring with gradients and unnecessary effects. So overall, an okay addition to the two Aliens books, but just for the Predator fan and completist. So, thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.